Is debt beating you down? You need discipline. You need the Debt Ninja. If you've been caught in a financial trap and need to be set free, then you need the Debt Ninja. Want to stop those harassing collection calls, start saving thousands in interest and fees, and get out of debt fast? Then you need to call the Debt Ninja. The Debt Ninja will find the best companies across the country that will help you consolidate all your bills into one easy payment, reduce your payments by 30 to 50%, and get you out of debt fast. If you have unsecured debt of $10,000 or more, such as credit cards, loans, or medical bills, call the Debt Ninja for a free 15-minute consultation.
Call 800-826-1246. 800-826-1246. That's 800-826-1246. Call today.
The Debt Ninja.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
My name is Jessie. I'm a United States Special Forces widow. This gives me a unique perspective on the world around us. If you're willing to listen, I'll tell you how I see it, and I won't pull any punches. This is my POV, which stands for Point of View.
All right, this is Jessie. I am so happy to be back with you guys. You know, I miss you when I'm not talking to you. I actually really do. Sorry I didn't get on last night. Mr. Frog was here. And he was here in force. Boy, was he here in force. So I just, rather than give you a croaky episode, as you can hear, he's still hanging around, I decided I would just take the night off, and I apologize for that. But sometimes it can't be helped. Now, before I get on to what's going outside the United States, which there's been an earthquake in New Zealand, there's the usual Mosul, Syria, Aleppo, Iran, Iraq, North Korea. Come on, all that stuff's still going on. Before I get into details on all that, I have to go on a small rant, and bear with me. You know I do not usually cover U.S. news, but I'm making an exception tonight. My show, my chance to make an exception. What is with these special snowflakes, many of whom didn't vote, aren't old enough to vote, who are ditching classes and various other things to protest the fact that Trump was elected? Now, people are saying, well, Hillary got the popular vote, so she should be president. Hello? We have something called the Electoral College. Maybe you should ask your teachers or your college professors how it works. It is not dependent on popular vote. And Trump did get the magic number of 270 or more to win the presidency. So quite frankly, I have never been a Trump supporter. I'm still not supporting Trump, but you know what? The election's over. You had your chance before the election to do something about it. So, your candidate lost, just like I wasn't an Obama supporter. You didn't see riots in the street when he won. There was moaning and groaning, but there were no riots. Alright, so, no offense, stuff it and get back to class, special snowflakes. Really? Really? The world doesn't revolve around you. Yeah, wake up call. I'm sorry, but the world does not revolve around you, special snowflakes. Alright, before I get into our lovely Mosul update, there was an earthquake in New Zealand, and it was actually a pretty big one. It was a 7.8 earthquake. That's pretty high on the Richter scale. It really is. Now, for those of you who don't follow all the shows on KLRN Radio, one of our very own show hosts, Dr. Judy L. Moore, who is the primary person behind Conversations in Science, felt the earthquake, even though she was a 2 to 3 hour car drive away from the epicenter. There have been at least 2 killed, and the capital city of Wellington has essentially, for all intents and purposes, been cut off by this earthquake. It's mainly connected by air, sea, or road. That's the 3 main ways. Well, there's one road in and one road out. That road is a coastal road. It is flooded. They can't even evaluate the damage till the water recedes. Now, the flooding was exacerbated by the supermoon. Notice I didn't say the earthquake was exacerbated by the supermoon. The flooding from the high tide was exacerbated by the supermoon. All right. The airport runway was damaged in the quake, as were the docks where the ferries land. So the primary modes of transportation in and out of the capital, Wellington, have been cut off. That's a problem. That is a problem. And it struck at midnight in New Zealand. Now, I will say certain places got with it. They have a policy that emanated from previous earthquakes there, that any earthquake over 6.0 on the Richter scale, all public buildings are immediately closed till they can be inspected. Well, I can tell you in Christchurch, where our host, Dr. Judy L. Moore, a.k.a. Doc, where Doc lives, they got up, got the buildings inspected, and school started on time. So they had their act together. Gotta give them credit. Gots to give them lots of credit. Now, there are other parts of New Zealand that didn't fare well either. There are certain parts, they have a highway there called Highway 1. It is it goes along the side of a mountain. It's a coastal highway as well. It's unpassable. It is completely unpassable. So there are other areas of the region that have been affected. Like I said, I'm sorry, Mr. Frog is still with us tonight. But I have a funny story out of the New Zealand earthquake. Cows. Yes, I said the word cow. Yes, cow. Got it? Good. There were 3 cows that were stranded on a small patch of land as the rest of the land in their pasture fell away around them. Oh, yeah. Now, the cows were thankfully rescued. Yes, I said.
At Farmers, we've seen almost everything, so we know how to cover almost.
Sorry about that. I was loading the story. 3 cows. For 3 cows, the powerful New Zealand quake provided an utterly dire situation. The 7.8 magnitude tremor on Monday triggered a slew of landslide that trapped 3 bovines on a small island of grass near the small coastal town of Kakora, which is a tourist hub about 90 miles north of Christchurch. Rescuers weren't sure how to get to the cows until the trio's owner, who had already lost at least a dozen cows to the quake, grabbed his pick and shovel and went to work. He dug a track with the aid of a number of people. The soil was still quite soft because it all been tipped over and bumbled around. We managed to get a track in and bring them out. So it was 2 adult cattle and a calf. And he did lose stock. The whole hillside fell during the quake, and he had a lot of stock there. Kakora is close to the epicenter of the overnight earthquake, where one of the 2 confirmed deaths occurred. The landslides destroyed most roads and bridges leading to the resort town. The quake was strongly felt to the south in Christchurch, but was far less damaging than the smaller 2011 earthquake that devastated the city. And New Zealand's 10 million cattle easily outnumber its 4.7 million people. So there is good news. The 3 cows that were stranded in Christchurch have been rescued. I had to lead off with that story. I needed to give everybody a little bit of a laugh because it's, well, been one of those weeks. So I figured everybody needed a laugh. So there's your laugh of the day. All right. What else is going on in the world? Yep, there's the stack of show prep, so you know I've got something for you. You've never heard me not pound paper, have you? Just getting it in order. You know I never have it in order before we get started, do I? Very rarely. All right. For those of you who are regular listeners to the show, you will know Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is the leader of Daesh, aka ISIS, ISIL, whatever you want to call him. I usually call him Daesh for the record. There are rumors that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi has escaped Mosul, but is still in Iraq, hiding somewhere. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi it's believed that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is in a region between the town of Tal Afar and the town of al-Baj in Iraq, hiding somewhere outside Mosul. And this is according to Iraq's Al-Maluma news agency. He said that the operation of the volunteer forces over a 14,000 square kilometer area around Mosul that includes the towns of Al-Hazar and Al-Baj and its surrounding regions towards Al-Afar have reportedly spotted him and or his companions. Based on an agreement made earlier, the Iraqi Popular Forces and the Peshmerga Kurdish troops will not be part of the invading forces inside the 2 cities of Tal Afar and Mosul. Now, by Iraqi Popular Forces, we're not talking the army. That the Iraqi Popular Forces refers to the militia groups. Okay? And the Peshmerga, they're the Kurds. So the militias and the Kurds are not going inside Tal Afar and Mosul. They will help to tighten and maintain the siege on the rims of the 2 cities. Various units of Iraq's armed forces, including the army, the police, and anti-terrorism troops, lead the assault. Al-Assadi's statement is the latest in a string of reports on the fate of the notorious Daesh leader. During the last several months, many contradictory reports have surfaced in the media about the health and condition of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Okay, guys, for those of you who don't keep up on this on a regular basis, Baghdadi is just as bad as UBL, or Osama bin Laden. Alright? He is just as bad. He may be worse, but he is at least as bad. Alright, a prominent Iraqi military analyst said in late October that Riyadh and Ankara had hatched plots to transfer al-Baghdadi from Mosul to Libya, but massive presence of popular forces and Russian fighter jets along the bordering areas of Iraq and Syria dissuaded them. The 2 countries were working to take al-Baghdadi to Turkey, either moving him through Mosul and Kirkuk to the north or through Al-Qayyam and Al-Ratba corridor to Deir Azir in Syria and then to Turkey to eventually transfer him to Libya. He added that Daesh concluded that transferring al-Baghdadi through the Al-Afar region to Raqqa in Syria is almost impossible given the massive presence of Hasht al-Shabi in the southern front near the Baj district. Okay, Hasht al-Shabi. What was that mouthful? That's the same reaction I had. You know, I always try and break this down. So give me a moment and let me see my notes on it. It appears to be one of the local militia groups. That's all I can find on it at the moment. Okay? So we're just going to call them local militia group. Let me see if I can find just a little bit more. Yep. People's Mobilization. It's also Popular Mobilization Force. It's the umbrella group basically composed of some 40 militias, which are mainly Shia Muslim. But there are also Sunni Muslim, Christian, and Yazidi groups as well. So basically the militias have stopped Baghdadi from moving on. Daesh is now working to find a different path through the Iraq-Syria borders to take al-Baghdadi to Turkey, then to Libya, or to any other countries. Al-Assam said. The statements came as... You think Mr. Fogg's bad tonight. The statements came as reports from Western Iraq said earlier in October that al-Baghdadi has succumbed to his fatal injuries and died in a region along the border with Syria. Okay, there have been many reports about Baghdadi's reported injury, death, and everything else. However, your host is going to say, we really don't know. All right, I'm just going to come out and say, until we have eyes on intelligence, we really won't know. According to Iraq's Sumeria News, local sources in Nineveh quoted defected Daesh leaders as saying earlier this year that al-Baghdadi has managed to escape from Mosul to Raqqa, but one of his wives was arrested. I don't know if that's accurate either. Like I said, reports out of this region, and this... al-Baghdadi and a group of Daesh commanders have stealthily returned to Iraq's Nineveh province. The Arabic language Sumeria News quoted an unnamed local Iraqi source as saying at the time, and that was mid-May. So we really don't know where this guy is. I'm not going to read through... I'm not going to read through any more of these speculations because it's not going to do you or me a bit of good. So the U.S.-led coalition has pounded Daesh targets relentlessly since the offensive to recapture Mosul began last month. The heavy fighting has been evident on the ground. Witnesses said Iraqi security forces and Daesh clashed for several hours as they fight for control over neighborhoods east of the city. Each side used mortars and RPGs engaged in close-quarter fighting in some areas. As Iraqi security forces have mobilized into Mosul, Daesh has clogged potential access routes using blast walls buttressing its last standing stronghold and moving further into parts of the city. This is where I get concerned. This is where they start taking human shields. This is where they get really bad. The sympathizers have met opposition from residents who are discouraging people from buying the cheap property in retaliation for what Daesh members or supporters did to the citizens of Mosul. So Daesh members and sympathizers have started selling their houses, cars, and other property to finance escapes. A number of residents are reportedly disappointed with the speed of Mosul's liberation. They said fear across the city among residents has increased because of what they see as slow advances by the Iraqi forces. Daesh has fortified its positions and regrouped after the Iraqi forces' initial push on Mosul, which was faster than current progress. The last 4 weeks, coalition forces have hammered Daesh targets with 4,000 bombs, artillery strikes, and missiles. That's according to coalition spokesman Colonel John Dorian. They have also killed hundreds of fighters in the battle to retake Mosul. Nearly 60 vehicles equipped with bombs and more than 80 tunnels have been destroyed. We will continue to strike the enemy for as long as it takes for the Iraqi flag to be raised over Mosul and every other corner of this country, Dorian said. Coalition forces have been helping Iraqi soldiers wrest Mosul from Daesh since the offensive started on October 17th. All right. Just goes to show that this is not a quick thing. It's not, okay, we're going to go retake this thing, bing, boom, bam, we're done, we're out. No. That is not how this works, folks. It is slow, it is a painstaking process, and it will take long. It will be long, slow, and bloody. And there is nothing surprising about any of this. Alright, oh my, where does the time go? We are at the bottom of the hour, which means I gotta pay them bills. We gotta take that commercial break. Alright. I will see you on the other side.
You can lay it down if you wanna. You can run away if you wanna. You can pretend that this is totally okay if you wanna. You can play it dead if you wanna. Forget what they said if you wanna. Turn your back on the country needing you right now. But I don't wanna.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate Formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
You can lay down if you wanna. You can run away if you wanna. You can pretend that this is totally okay if you wanna. You can play dead if you wanna. Forget what they said if you wanna. Turn your back on the country needing you right now, but I don't wanna.
All right, thank you for hanging in there with me over that commercial break. Warplanes resumed airstrikes on the besieged rebel-held sections of Aleppo, Syria on Tuesday as Russia began a major new offensive against insurgents battling Syria's President Bashar al-Assad. All right, we haven't had those scorecards out in a while. Let's give a quick rundown since none of us have been near this topic too recently. All right, Bashar al-Assad is president of Syria. We got that. Russia is back propping up Bashar al-Assad. President Obama, and I'm going to be decisive here on what I say, has said Assad must go. I don't recall Trump's stance, don't even ask. All right, so Russia and the U.S. are on opposite sides of whether Assad must stay or go. Russia keeps bombing Syrian rebels. Some of the same Syrian rebels that we're trying to say are the moderate Syrians who we're arming and trying to send against Daesh. Then, of course, you've got Iran, who's friends with Russia. They just made a major weapons deal. Going, oh, we'll prop up Assad too. Not that they have that much in the way of resources to contribute, but they do contribute moral support. Then Turkey is trying to reestablish normal relations with Russia. Not going so well, folks. It's just not. But they're friends with the U.S., and we're using a Turkish airbase to launch strikes against Daesh, aka
Alexa,
ISIS.
How do you spell eternal?
Eternal is spelled E.
Okay, no idea where that came from. It's gone. So, we are friends with Turkey, who's trying to become friends with normalized relations with Russia, but it's not going real well. And Russia's propping up Syria, and Turkey doesn't really care whether Assad stays or goes. But they're trying to be friendly to Russia, who's propping up Syria, but yet we're using a Turkish military base to do airstrikes on terrorists. Well, the people we see as terrorists aren't the same people that Bashar al-Assad sees as terrorists. He's not really worried about Daesh. Daesh is not the thorn in his side right now. It's the Syrian rebels. Russia's defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, said it had started a big operation to deliver massive strikes against the Islamic State and Levant Victory Front, formerly known as the Nusra Front, in Idlib and Homs provinces. Jets taking off from Russia's aircraft carrier, the Admiral Kuznetsov, conducted their first strikes on Syria. The Russian military said, noting its forces were hitting targets in the two provinces. It was unclear whether the strikes in Aleppo were by Russian or Syrian planes. The fighting shared the relative calm that had prevailed in the rebel-held western parts of Aleppo for about 3 weeks. In a text message, Modar Shiku, a nurse and anti-government activist in Aleppo, said, "The warplane is still in the sky. Our house is being shaken." And he shared an audio recording with the roar of the plane and the sound of explosions. I do not have the recording. It has not been made public. Residents reported airstrikes on at least 5 Aleppo neighborhoods. The extent of casualties was unclear, but they appeared to be at least 3 civilians, including a woman who were killed in the neighborhood of Masakin, Ano, and 10 others who were wounded. There were conflicting reports about whether the attack had consisted of barrel bombs, which are usually dropped from helicopters, or an assault by fighter jets. Since this morning until now, dozens of shells and rockets have bombed Aleppo. A resident of Mohammed al-Shagal, resident of eastern Aleppo, said in a text message, adding that he believed the planes were Russian fighter jets. Mr. Shoigu, the Russian defense minister, in a meeting in Sochi, Russia, with President Putin, said that a Russian warship, the Admiral Grigorovich, was taking part in this operation, launching cruise missiles against insurgent targets. For the first time in the history of Russian Navy, the Admiral Kuznetsov aircraft carrier took part in combat too. Today, our Su-33 fighter jets began to work from this warship. Mr. Shoigu also briefed Mr. Putin on what he called the use of chemical weapons by the insurgents. The Russian military said the chemical weapons used by the insurgents caused 3 deaths of Syrian soldiers and the hospitalization of dozens of others. On Monday, a Russian fighter jet crashed off the Syrian coast as it tried to return to the Kuznetsov. The pilot ejected safely, and the Russian defense minister blamed a technical failure. Now, there is a quote in here saying the fighting broke out a day after Putin spoke to President-elect Trump and agreed to cooperate on fighting international terrorism and extremism. And that does echo Mr. Trump's comments that he would try to work with Moscow and Mr. Assad to fight against Daesh. Trump's comments concerning Syria also received a favorable reaction on Tuesday from the United Nations Special Envoy for Syria. What he's been saying is quite interesting. The priority is Daesh, fighting terrorism. Second, to do if possible, deal with Russia. Both points make a lot of sense. The diplomat had yet to speak with Mr. Trump or his associates. He also emphasized that in his view the Syria conflict will require a completely new approach to what is a political solution. Alright, so Aleppo, they're being bombed. Somehow, that's not news, but it is news. Now, what does Bashar al-Assad say about this whole thing? Syrian President Bashar al-Assad said on Tuesday, Damascus would have to wait and see if U.S. President-elect Donald Trump would change Washington's policy on Syria, but he's ready to cooperate with him in fighting militants. Alright, that's a real thumbnail. I don't think we need to go into this one any further, folks. I think that is quite enough on that subject. Now, I got some stuff coming up. We're going to hear a lot about NATO, and we have already. And this story kind of relates, so we're going to go ahead and go with this one. This one's from NATO. The United Nations Humanitarian Envoy for Syria today urged actions to stave off the threat of mass hunger in eastern Aleppo before the arrival of winter that he fears could be a real killer for 250,000 people. I'm going to repeat that, 250,000 people. The fifth war of winter is starting in Syria. There's no doubt it will be the worst in this cruel war, and I fear it will be a real killer in too many places, Jen England, special advisor to the UN Special Envoy for Syria, told reporters in Geneva. Some of the areas are freezing cold, horrible conditions, and people will be in need of digging themselves down in the ground in extreme cases. He explained that humanitarian convoys are being blocked physically or administratively from reaching them, or they cannot depart because of crossfire or insecurity. He said the last time eastern Aleppo was reached with significant humanitarian supplies was the beginning of July. And reports imply that the last of the food rations are being distributed now. There will not be more to distribute next week, he said. Mr. Eglin said that the UN put forth a humanitarian initiative last week, which has been translated into Arabic and presented to the negotiating parties, including Russia, the Syrian government, and the armed opposition groups. He said that the initiative calls for 4 actions to save the people in eastern Aleppo: distribution of medical supplies to the medical facilities, medical evacuations for the estimated 300 or so patients together with their families, delivery of food and other urgent humanitarian relief supplies, and dispatch of more personnel to provide medical relief. None of the 4 elements are conditional on the others, he said. Having heard back from the humanitarian task force today, we are hopeful that both sides will, since the situation is so horrendous, grant us the opportunity to both come with supplies into East Aleppo and evacuate the wounded and others out of East Aleppo, he said. The International Syria Support Group, ISSG, has established the respective task forces on the humanitarian aid delivery and a wider ceasefire. They have been meeting separately since early this year on a way forward in the crisis. Russia and the United States are the co-chairs of the task force, and the ISSG, which also comprises the UN, the Arab League, and the European Union, and 16 other countries. Okay, since when did a committee make anything happen quickly? There are also hardships in western Aleppo which can still be reached with aid, he said, warning that civilians there are dying every single week from the continued fighting. Mr. Eglund also noted the situation has not gotten better in other besieged areas. And as for Mahdia, Zabadia, Foa, and Kafra, under the 4 towns agreement, all relief into these areas and medical evacuations out have been paralyzed because of the conditioning between Iran and Ahrar al-Sham. I've not seen a place where so much politicalization and manipulation of aid as we have seen in Syria in recent months. It has to stop. Alright, so basically the Syrian government, the Russian government, and even the local leaders are politicizing humanitarian aid needed to save these people. That is downright terrible. That is offensive, and that needs to stop. Alright, I've got some stuff here about NATO in general, because you're going to hear a lot about NATO in the upcoming, you're going to hear it all over the place. Because the President-elect made a huge deal about NATO. 1. NATO is an international security hub, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It's one of the major international institutions. It is a political and military alliance of 28 member countries from Europe and North America. Every country, no matter how large or small, has an equal say in discussions and decisions. Member states are committed to individual liberty, democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. Alright, collective defense. This is the greatest responsibility of the alliance, is to protect and defend NATO's territory and populations. Article 5 of NATO's founding charter, The Washington Treaty sets out the Alliance collective defense commitment. It states that an attack on one shall be considered an attack on all. Article 5 has been invoked only once in NATO's history, on 12 September 2001, the day after the terrorist attacks on the United States. NATO's command structure. NATO has a permanent integrated military command structure where military and civilian personnel from all member states work together. The alliance has 2 top-level strategic commands in Belgium and Allied Command Operations in Mons, Belgium, and Allied Command Transformation in Norfolk. Standing forces. NATO has a number of standing forces on active duty that contribute to the alliance's collective defense on a permanent basis. These include NATO's 4 standing maritime group fleets, which are ready to act when called upon. Alliance's ballistic missile defense capabilities. The alliance also conducts several air policing missions in which Allied fighter jets patrol the airspace of member nations who do not have fighter jets of their own. They defend NATO airspace over Albania, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Slovenia on a 24/7 basis, 365 days a year. NATO benefits from being able to draw on military expertise and capabilities of its members. These include tanks, submarines, or fighter jets. When the alliance collectively decides to conduct our operation, it asks allies for troops and equipment to be placed under NATO command. While personnel serving on a NATO operation are often referred to collectively as NATO forces, they are strictly speaking multinational forces from NATO member countries, and in some cases partner countries or other troop contributing countries. The only military equipment that NATO itself owns is a fleet of AWACS. From 2018, NATO will also operate 5 Global Hawk surveillance drones. Procedure for requesting forces and equipment for an operation is also often referred to as force generation. NATO funding. Member countries make direct and indirect contributions to the cost of running NATO and implementing its policies and activities. Member countries incur the cost whenever they volunteer forces to participate in a NATO operation. For example, the cost for providing a fighter jet lies with the nation that makes available. Direct contributions to NATO's common budget are made by members in accordance with the agreed cost-sharing formula based on the relative gross national income. We're not going any further into that. In the 5 decades after World War II, the alliance successfully prevented the Cold War from becoming hot under the security umbrella provided by NATO. The people in European countries, Canada, and the United States enjoyed the benefits of democratic choice, the rule of law, and substantial economic growth. The alliance has frequently acted to uphold international peace and security. In 1995, NATO helped to end the war in Bosnia-Herzegovina and implemented the peace agreement. In 1999, NATO helped stop mass killings and expulsions in Kosovo. NATO troops continue to serve in Kosovo to this day under a United Nations mandate. Since 2003, NATO's UN-mandated presence has helped to ensure Afghanistan will never again become a safe haven for terrorists. In 2011, NATO enforced a UN mandate to protect the people of Libya. NATO ships are fighting piracy off the coast of Somalia and are conducting counterterrorism patrols in the Mediterranean. Since February 2016, NATO has provided support to assist with the growing refugee and migrant crisis in Europe. NATO ships are contributing intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, supporting international efforts to stem illegal trafficking and illegal migration in the Aegean Sea. On several occasions, NATO forces have delivered relief supplies, including to the United States after Hurricane Katrina and to Pakistan after October 2005. Security. Threats like terrorism, piracy, and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and cyber warfare know no borders. That is why NATO has developed a global network of security partners. Open door. Any European state which contribute to the security and principles of the alliance can be invited to join. It is up to the country concerned to decide if it wishes to seek membership. On 6 occasions between 1952 and 2009, a total of 16 European countries chose to seek membership, and were admitted. This process has contributed to peace and security in Europe. By the way, for the record, Germany, where the Warsaw Pact, Russia's version of NATO, was signed, is now part of NATO. I find that kind of ironic. I really do. Alright, I got just one more piece and then we are going to get moving. Russia, top 5 myths about NATO. NATO outlives its usefulness after its purpose after the Cold War. NATO is encircling Russia. NATO has violated the NATO-Russia Founding Act. Nope. These are things that Russia routinely puts out. NATO defense missiles target Russia. NATO is preparing for war with Russia. Okay, first of all, NATO doesn't have any standing troops. It has to go begging from member countries to get them. Where, oh where, how cuckoo bird do you have to get? Alright, as I do with every casualty notification, I'm holding not 1 but 2. And it looks like there's a total of 4, no, just 3 names. 3 names. I had to read them real quick to tell. This one was released November 11th on Veterans Day. The Defense Department today announced the death of a soldier who was supporting Operation Inherent Resolve. Specialist Ronald L. Murray Jr. of Bowie, Maryland, died November 10th in Kuwait in a non-combat related incident. Murray was assigned to the 4th Battalion, 1st Field Artillery Regiment, 3rd Armored Brigade Combat Team, 1st Armored Division, Fort Bliss, Texas. The Department of Defense today announced the death of 2 soldiers who were supporting Operations Freedom Sentinel. They died November 12th of injuries sustained from an improvised explosive device in Bagram, Afghanistan. The soldiers were assigned to Headquarters and Headquarters Company, 1st Special Troops Battalion, 1st Sustainment Brigade, 1st Cavalry Division, Fort Hood, Texas. Killed were Sergeant John W. Perry, 30, of Stockton, California, PFC Tyler R. Ibolt, 20, of Tamara, Illinois. I thank you and your families for your service. All right, folks. Right behind me tonight should be the Jen and Rick Show. Oh, and I have a special note from Daniel Stafford of the Stafford Voice. He is going to do a show on Wednesday night. Yeah, I know, Wednesday. It's not his normal night. But he promises it'll be a good one. He wanted to do a makeup since he made everybody miss Monday. So be sure and tune in tonight, right after me, for the Jen and Rick Show. And then right after that would be America Off the Rails. Then tomorrow, right before me will be the Conservative Curmudgeon. Right after me will be the Stafford Voice. And then right after him would be America Off the Rails. There's a pattern here somewhere. Alright, guys. I'm not screaming tonight. My voice can't take it. I'm out of here.